The story starts with a young man named Kinji Ninomiya. He looked down on the wage workers who worked hard every day for their money. Then we learn that he put all his money into Bitcoin. As a result, he became a Bitcoin millionaire, and he invested his money to build 3 skyscrapers. He became a top G and never planned to work again in his life. Suddenly, a black hole appeared in his apartment, and he was teleported to another world. After that, he looked around, and he was confused after seeing the monsters in front of him. A few months passed, and Belza, the director of Rizaha Demonite Mining Corporation, made an announcement that they need to work even harder. We then learn that he was teleported to a magical world full of monsters and dungeons. But with modernization, the world changed dramatically. As a result, the ore found in dungeons was used as an energy sources. Then we see Ninomiya mining, and his co-worker was losing his mind because Saruya has been working for 3 months without taking a day off. Suddenly, the team leader of his group showed up, and he was angry because Ninomiya could only reach 15% of his quota. Ninomiya hated being exploited in this world. He got tired of working 16 hours every day and started crying. Meanwhile, a guy named Wannabe was being yelled at by his supervisor. Ninomiya couldn't help him, and he decided not to intervene in this conversation. Suddenly, he dropped a gold coin on the floor that he needed to buy food. The coin rolled into a small hole, and Ninomiya discovered an opportunity to change his life. In the night, he was looking for Wannabe, and he invited him out for a drink. Wannabe told him that their team leader was mad because he wasn't at work this afternoon. Then Ninomiya told his story that he is 20 million in debt because his first business failed. He said he tried to make money through dropshipping, but it didn't work. As a result, he ended up in the mining company and worked like a slave. He planned to become a top G again, and explained Wannabe about his plan to get rich. The following morning he was almost scolded, but he asked if he could go on a prospecting tour. Ninomiya's team leader was happy about this and wished him good luck. Then we learned that prospecting tour is a slang term that means a small group goes deeper into the dungeon. A short time later, Wannabe said that it was very dangerous down in the dungeon. Ninomiya replied that he didn't have to worry, and he showed him a hidden portal. He said that this passage is safe, and that they can get to the 3rd floor of the dungeon. After arriving in the 3rd floor, there was demonite everywhere, which was worth twice as much as the demonite on the 1st floor. After that, they started mining, and Wannabe was grateful that Ninomiya gave him this great chance. Ninomiya replied that he got top G potential, and he feels that they will make a lot of money as a team. A few hours later, they collected a large amount of expensive ore, and they were planning to go back. Suddenly, a dangerous monster appeared who planned to eat them. They were attacked, but Ninomiya and his friend managed to dodge it. Then they hid from the monster, and Ninomiya thought he was going to die. He didn't want to die, and he came up with a plan. After that, he pushed Wannabe, and he said that he will be his bait. As a result, Wannabe was caught by the giant monster, and he thought that Ninomiya ran away. Before Wannabe could be eaten, Ninomiya appeared. He learned that the monster's name was Rim. Then he made Rim an offer to protect them from other monsters, and in exchange, he would get her delicious food. Rim found Ninomiya interesting, and Ninomiya used all his business skills to convince her. Rim accepted the deal, and she turned into a cute girl. Ninomiya was happy to have survived, and he sensed that this deal would change his life. A few weeks later, he was praised by his team leader because his results were insane. Meanwhile, Ninomiya was angry because he lost more money on food for Rim, because she was eating more like Nico avocado. Following this, Ninomiya decided to make more money, and he went back into the dungeon. Wannabe noticed that all over this area were magic items. Suddenly, Rim said that this area is the toilet for Rim and the other monsters. He was shocked by this, and Rim told him that she is hungry. Wannabe decided to cut off his tail, and Ninomiya learned that his tail will grow back. He started acting weird after that, and Rim explained to him that he is hypnotized. Ninomiya learned that it was caused by the magic item, and he used it to hypnotize his co-workers. Ninomiya thought he was Jeff Bezos, and took advantage of the sleepwalker's staff to brainwash his co-workers. Then Wannabe said it is wrong to brainwash their co-workers. Ninomiya replied that he doesn't have to worry because he will erase their memories of the end of this day. As a result, Ninomiya made a huge amount of money, and his co-workers were enslaved. In the evening, Ninomiya tried to enjoy a hot bath, but Rim peed in the tub. In the meantime, his co-workers were wondering why they are feeling so tired. In the following day, Ninomiya was motivated to make a lot of money, and one of his co-workers didn't want to work anymore. As a result, Ninomiya used the magic item again to hypnotize his co-workers. Wannabe told him that her co-workers are at their limit. He didn't listen to his friend, and ordered Rim to increase the power. Suddenly, the sleepwalker staff fell apart and his co-workers were no longer hypnotized. Ninomiya's co-workers came to their senses and they were very angry with him. He was beaten up by his co-workers and Rim was hungry. She tried to eat Ninomiya and his plan to get rich and become a top G failed. In the days that followed, Ninomiya went to work and was despised by his co-workers. Then he found a letter and he wondered why Wannabe thought that he will die. The reason for this was that they were transferred to Explorations Division Group 8. Later, Ninomiya was almost killed by a slime, and Wannabe tried to save him. Ninomiya hated working for this terrible company. Then we learned that the Raizaha mining company is divided into many different divisions. Exploration is the core of its corporate revenue. For this reason, there are also different groups that have specific tasks in the dungeon, such as killing monsters and expanding the mining areas. Ninomiya was transferred to Group 8, which was responsible for supporting those who fought on the front lines. They must clean up mob monsters, and they were viewed as dropouts. Ninomiya didn't plan on spending the rest of his life with cleaning mobs, and Wannabe was depressed. Then he tried to cheer up his friend and he said that he can't give up his dream of becoming rich. Suddenly Wannabe was attacked by a mimic, and he said that he can't breathe. Ninomiya looked for a potion that could save his friend. He didn't find something useful and decided to use their magic bag to attack the mimic. In the evening he was scolded by his superior, and Ninomiya learned that he had to pay off the magic bag with the items it contained. As a result, Ninomiya was broke again and had no money to buy food. He still needed to feed Rim and stole a garbage bag full of leftover food. Rim started to eat the leftovers, but she suddenly stopped because she smelled something delicious. She found marbled meat that Ninomiya bought for a cheap price. He tried to stop Rim from eating his precious marble meat, but she kicked him into the wall. Later, Ninomiya was back at work and was ordered to refill the treasure boxes. Afterwards, he entered the dungeon and he was completely exhausted. Suddenly he met a guy from Group 3 who was running towards the exit. He was relieved after seeing Ninomiya and planned to use him as food for some monsters. A few moments later, huge ants appeared behind them, and the two started running away. Ninomiya learned that they are dungeon ants, and Group 3 had failed to eliminate them. Following this, Ninomiya spotted a river and he jumped into it. He saved Shin and planned to use the phone. Ninomiya tried to call for help, but his superiors thought he was lying. Nobody believed him that monsters were on their way to the surface because they usually never leave their territory. Then the dungeon ants were on their way to eat them. He didn't intend to die and tried to find a way out. At the last second he got a brilliant idea and he looked at a blue box. A few moments later we see that Ninomiya's plan worked. He mixed dungeon ant feet with a transformation potion. As a result, they were able to transform into dungeon ants and managed to survive. Unfortunately, the gate out of the dungeon was locked and there was no way out. Soon after, an ant collapsed from exhaustion, and Ninomiya realized that they could understand the dungeon ant's language. He got his next top G plan in mind and started talking to an exhausted ant. Following this, he manipulated the ant with his business skills. Ninomiya explained to him that he is exploited and that he should expect more from life. Ninomiya tried to turn the ant against his boss and asked if he is angry about never getting a day off, even though he works hard every day. Ninomiya then convinced the ant to work for him, and he was surprised at how easy it was. Everything went according to his plan, and he convinced more and more ants to work for him. Shin and Muten Roshi wondered what Ninomiya was up to, because after a short time he gathered a large group of dungeon ants. Suddenly Ninomiya began to turn the fellow worker ants against their queen. The ants worshipped him like a god and they became his puppets. Ninomiya was a true top G, and he managed to win many ants to his side. Meanwhile, the dungeon ant queen has been informed that their progress on Operation Surface Invasion is at 30%. Suddenly the worker ants began to protest, and Ninomiya talked down to her. She was confused and wondered why a human was here with her ants. He replied that they are comrades fighting for their rights. He also said that she no longer has the right to be a queen. She became angry and increased her power level to crush Ninomiya. At the last moment, Rim appeared, hungry. Ninomiya was surprised to see Rim, and she planned to eat some ants. Ninomiya stopped her, and he protected the dungeon ants with a piece of meat. As a result, he was adored by all the ants, and the queen ant fell in love with him. The next morning, Wannabe apologized for causing him problems. Wannabe was surprised that he wasn't angry at all, and he noticed that he was in a good mood. The reason for this was that Ninomiya realized that their company needed a new leader. Then he told Wannabe that he started a new group called Black Company. Also, he learned that Ninomiya acquired an army of strong monsters. A few weeks later, we see Shia, who was praised by Belza. Belza explained to her that a group of promising rookies are returning from their corporate training retreat. As a result, Shia was asked to put her great skill to use by their side in Detmold. Then we see Ninomiya, who was at the corporate training retreat, and they were being trained like soldiers. Sergeant Pig was very strict and he did not tolerate disobedience from his soldiers. Later they were in a dungeon, and a powerful Cerberus tried to eat them. Ninomiya was angry because his plan to get rich with the help of his army of ants didn't work out. Meanwhile, Cerberus planned to eat Wannabe, but Sergeant Pig eliminated the monster. They survived the first day of boot camp, and Sergeant Pig looked down on them. The next morning they were lectured by Sergeant Pig, and he said that they were lacking basic stamina. For this reason, he ordered them to run to the top of a mountain. All the workers were hungry, but Sergeant Pig wasn't going to give them anything to eat until they got to the top of the mountain. A few moments later, Ninomiya collapsed, and he planned to eat confusion grass. Wannabe warned him in time, and he was annoyed because he was starving. Then they got to the top of the mountain, and they were completely out of breath. They were not allowed to rest, and Sergeant Pig started the mental training. Ninomiya briefly lost his concentration, and he was almost killed. So another painful day passed, and all the workers were happy to have survived. In the evening, a co-worker almost lost his mind because of this place. But Wannabe said he liked this place, and Ninomiya realized that something was wrong with his friend. The reason for this was that Sergeant Pig used a special disc to brainwash the workers. Then we see Rim, and she was bored with the food in the dungeon. In the morning that followed, Ninomiya's group was enslaved again. Then we see Ninomiya, and the brainwashing slowly started to take effect. Over the next few days, the workers were successfully hypnotized. Following this, we see Sergeant Pig, who also ordered black mages to cast a powerful brainwashing spell. A few weeks passed and Ninomiya was a puppet without his own will. He was praised by Sergeant Pig, and his co-workers were motivated to work until they die. Then we see Belza giving a speech, and she was enjoying the sight of her loyal, weak-willed employees. She was worshipped as a goddess, and the workers planned to work in this company forever. In the afternoon, the corporate training retreat was over, and Sergeant Pig sold them an overpriced Belza figurines. Later on, someone bumped into Ninomiya, and he came to his senses. After that, Wannabe showed up, who bought 3 of the Belza figures, but Ninomiya destroyed them. Additionally, he hit him in the face, and Wannabe also came to his senses. Following this, he said that his plan to eat confusion grass to prevent them from being brainwashed was a success. Wannabe was glad he didn't become a tool. Meanwhile, Ninomiya was about to take revenge, and he smiled evilly. After this, Sergeant Pig reported that a person had put confusion grass in the mage's food. As a result, they activated a self-destruct button, and the island exploded. The following day, Ninomiya and his best friend Wannabe were promoted to the Group 3 office. Then Shin appeared, and he ignored Ninomiya. After this, they were greeted by Shia, who have been assigned as their superior. Wannabe was surprised to meet Shia, the second coming of the hero. She was flattered to be called a hero, and accidentally knocked him out. After Wannabe was taken to the hospital, Shia planned to show Ninomiya the new facilities. He was shown the Exploration Group headquarters and learned about the Mart Company, where they can buy gear. Ninomiya learned that Shia loved this store, but he thought it was stupid to buy gear from this shop. The reason for this was that the gear was made from the demonite they dug up. Shia couldn't tolerate Ninomiya bad-mouthing her company, and Ninomiya learned that she was just as stupid as SpongeBob SquarePants. Suddenly, Ninomiya was carried by Shia, and he couldn't do anything about it. As a result, Ninomiya was taken to the 3rd floor of the dungeon. A few moments later, a Hekatoncheri appeared, and he learned that it is a strong A-rank monster. At that moment the monster attacked them, but Shia easily stopped him. Dungeon Ant A appeared, and Ninomiya watched as Shia launched her attack. She split the monster in half, and Ninomiya was shocked by her enormous power. Shortly afterwards, she wondered what Ninomiya was doing. She discovered Dungeon Ant A and wondered why Ninomiya doesn't kill the monster. Shia concluded that Ninomiya is actually a monster too, and he called Rim to save him. After this, Rim appeared and Shia decided to attack her. Rim was angry, and she increased her power. She then hit Shia, and she broke her ribs with one punch. Following this, Shia was tied up and told that it is forbidden to work with monsters. A few moments later, Wannabe also showed up and he was confused. He asked what happened, and Ninomiya explained the situation to him. Shia planned to report them, and Wannabe didn't want to lose his job, but Ninomiya got a plan and he made Shia to an accomplice. As a result, she couldn't snitch anymore, and Wannabe understood why he should bring a camera. Following this, Shia learned that she is now an employee of Ninomiya's company. A month later, Ninomiya was broke again because all his money went to feed Rim. Suddenly, loan collectors appeared and took Ninomiya to an alley. The leader ordered him to pay back his debts within a month, otherwise he would die. We then see Shia dreaming about his father who left her to fight against monsters. After that, Shia said that she never wants to be like him. Later, she was motivated to redouble their efforts and clear out the dungeon. She noticed that something was wrong with Ninomiya. The reason for this was that he didn't know how to pay back 5 million gold. Shortly afterwards, Shia planned to get them used to dungeon exploration. She explained to Ninomiya and Wannabe that they must always be careful and not let their guard down. Then she discovered monsters, and the two were supposed to gain experience fighting monsters. Ninomiya was almost killed, but Wannabe saved him. Next, Shia explained to him that they need to collect body parts that have a lot of mana. Suddenly, Ninomiya noticed that Wannabe's tail had grown back, and he got an idea. A few days passed, and Belza discussed with the department heads that they are having some problems in the dungeon. Then she remembered about reports that something strange was happening on the second floor. Shortly afterwards, we see Rim, who was watching over several monsters in the dungeon. We then learn that Ninomiya built a monster farm on the second floor. He took advantage of the knowledge that monsters have parts of their bodies that grow back. This allowed him to earn a lot of money without having to work hard. Suddenly an earthquake started and Ninomiya tried to save Shia. We then learned that Belza caused the earthquake to sacrifice Shia as food for a demon. She was sure that her plan will work because the demon was after people with strong magical power. Unfortunately, Shia wasn't dead, and she told Ninomiya not to be so loud while she was fighting the monsters. Shortly after, she thanked Ninomiya for trying to save her. After that, Ninomiya asked her if there was a magic item that would teleport them to the exit. Shia said yes, but she would rather explore the dungeon. Suddenly a strong monster appeared, and Shia was attacked. She immediately launched a counterattack and was able to injure the enemy. At that moment she understood that she was being served as food for the demon. After Shia was hit by the demon again, Ninomiya was worried about her. They were in big trouble, and Shia said that they won't be able to survive. Following this, he learned that the teleportation item can only transport one person to the surface. Shia wanted to sacrifice her life, but Ninomiya had no intention of abandoning her. He stopped her, and he threw the magic item at the demon. We then see Belza scolding Ninomiya's former team leader. Suddenly the demon appeared on the surface and they were confused. Meanwhile, Shia couldn't believe what Ninomiya had done, but he replied that they have a bigger problem because the demon is after Shia. Then we see the demon that was rampaging on the surface. Following this, Ninomiya prepared countermeasures to save Shia. The demon was on his way to the second floor of the dungeon and the mine workers were scared. A few moments later, Ninomiya learned that Rim still hadn't been found. Meanwhile, Wannabe was happy that his best friend was unharmed. After that, Ninomiya's plan started, and he had set up a trap. He immediately ordered his ant friends to pour cement into the hole. Additionally, Shia cast a spell to dry the cement. Unfortunately, Ninomiya's trap didn't work, and he initiated the next plan. He told Shia to rest, and he planned to use her as bait. Following this, the demon was lured to the next trap, and Shia said that an ordinary trap doesn't work. Ninomiya ordered his ants to start their mission. At that moment, the demon fell into a large hole full of monster oil. Ninomiya then used fire to burn the demon. The demon became angry, and Ninomiya was blasted with laser beams. Shia was able to save him in time and she planned to sacrifice her life. But Ninomiya said that she should stop talking such nonsense. Suddenly Ninomiya told her that he knows about her father's story. Then Shia replied why she would sacrifice her life for the Raizaha company. Suddenly Ninomiya grabbed her breasts and he was punished for it. After this, he used his Riz skill and he said that she can't just throw her life away. Ninomiya knew what a woman wanted to hear and proved that he got infinite Riz. He told her that Shia should choose her own path, and she finally understood why her father left her. A few moments later, Ninomiya initiated his third plan to harm the demon. He wanted to make the fight easier for Shia, and she was happy to have Ninomiya at her side. She then attacked the demon with a powerful sword strike and was able to knock out the monster. Ninomiya thought they won, but the demon wasn't dead yet. In the last second, Rim appeared, and she saved him in time. However, Rim said that Ninomiya is her food, and she began to launch her attack. Rim defeated the powerful demon with a single attack, and Ninomiya was shocked by it. After the fight, he thanked Rim and promised to buy her delicious food. Suddenly, Rim said that the demon is not complete, and Ninomiya didn't understand anything she said. A few moments later, Ninomiya activated a red glowing button, and he fell into a black hole again. Then he woke up in his home and he was surprised to be back in Japan. He was overjoyed and thought he had dreamed. Afterwards, he was watching TV and Rim was on the news. He was confused and some reporters were looking for him. The news reported that Ninomiya was responsible. Suddenly, Rim showed up at his apartment and she said that she was hungry. Then he woke up from his nightmare and Rim was nibbling on his leg. After that, a cute girl asked Ninomiya if he could save her world. Ninomiya remembered that he activated a button in the dungeon and wanted an explanation from the girl in front of him. She had forgotten her lines and was looking in the book of prophecies. A few seconds later, she tried to ask him for help again, and Ninomiya became impatient as she tried to change the subject. Suddenly, Ninomiya asked Rim to scare the girl, and Rim destroyed a wall. Ninomiya looked through the hole in the wall and was shocked at this place. Following this, Zazel told Ninomiya that a big company is responsible for the end of the world. This company enslaved its employees. As a result, the humans became weak and demons started to rule the world. After that, the humans escaped below the ground. Following this, Ninomiya was told that they discovered a gate that was supposed to summon a savior. They called Ninomiya Lord Messiah and hoped that he would save their world. Ninomiya didn't feel like saving a bunch of losers. Zazel tried to change his mind, but he replied that he doesn't have time for it. At that moment, Zazel threatened him with a pistol and forced him to defeat the Demon Lord. He refused, and Zazel explained to him that if he defeated the Demon Lord, he could return to Japan. So Ninomiya decided to save this world so he can go back to Japan. Ranga planned to accompany him, but Ninomiya thought she was a burden. Then he noticed that Ranga is a guy, and Zazel explained to him the reason why a boy became the priestess. Ranga said that he identifies as a girl and tried to seduce Ninomiya. Ninomiya said that he doesn't mind his hobby of dressing up as a girl, but he shouldn't get on his nerves. Then he set off with his team and opened the door to the surface. He realized that this time he was sent to the future of Amuria and did not end up in another world. He was shocked that Raizaha was responsible for the end of the world. Meanwhile, Rim was starving, and Ninomiya didn't want to become Rim's food. When he arrived at the Demon Lord Castle, he didn't know how to get in without Rim's help. Suddenly, Ranga cast a powerful spell and he caused a huge explosion. Then a demon appeared, and he was angry. Ninomiya learned that this building wasn't the Demon Lord's castle. Despite the mistake, Ninomiya decided to destroy the castle and ordered Rim to attack. A few seconds later, he knew he screwed up, because Rim was inside the castle looking for food. As a result, Ninomiya was caught and taken to the Ant Farm Army Department head office. General Ant was surprised to see people, and he recognized Ninomiya. Then he said that he is Ant A, and Ninomiya was surprised to see his friend. Ninomiya learned that he grew up as a monster and went up in rank. A few moments later, Ninomiya was served delicious food by Ant A. This is how Ninomiya learned about the events that happened after his disappearance. Ranga was impressed by Ninomiya, and she asked about Ninomiya's past. Ant A talked about the fun adventures with Ninomiya. Then he said that his life isn't as fun compared to before. Suddenly, a guy appeared who caused problems. Rim was angry because he knocked over the table with the delicious food. Ninomiya calmed Rim down, and he learned that the guy was angry about the working conditions. He didn't want to have a 9-to-5 job anymore and complained. Ninomiya beat the guy up because the working conditions weren't exploitative in the slightest. Following this, Ant A told Ninomiya that they always gives the human a fair deal even though they did conquer them. Despite everything, they don't want to work and are constantly complaining. Ninomiya wondered why he didn't ask the Demon Lord for advice, but only the highest-ranking officers were allowed to meet the Demon Lord. Ninomiya wanted to help his friend and offered to help Ant A with his problems. As a result, the name of the castle was changed to Dungeon Black Company of the Future. In the days that followed, he took advantage of the human desires to ensure that everyone enjoyed work again. He became the Demon Lord Army's Deputy Assistant Section Chief. In addition, he decided to rule the town below the ground. A few weeks later, we see Ranga, who was already looking forward to take a bath. He got into the hot spring and said that he felt great. Afterwards, Ninomiya appeared in the secret demon hot spring. Rim jumped into the hot spring without washing and was lectured by Ninomiya. Meanwhile, Ranga was nervous about seeing Ninomiya naked. Then Ninomiya told Ranga that he is becoming a top G so that he can meet the Demon Lord. Meanwhile, some high-ranking members of the demon army were secretly watching him. Ru looked down on Ninomiya and he started insulting the other high-ranking members. Suddenly, he spat on the ground, which made Ash angry. Suddenly, Zack tried to grope Ash's big breasts, but she punched Zack in his face and he asked how they planned to destroy Ninomiya. The reason why they planned to wipe him out was that Ninomiya was a great threat to them, who endangered their rank. The following day, Ninomiya was on his way to a job. He got the job to hunt deserter monsters that have left the Demon Lord's army. We then see Ash waiting for Ninomiya to fall into her trap. Suddenly a monster appeared on the highway, intending to eat Ninomiya. She was sure that the powerful monster could easily eliminate him. Unfortunately, her plan failed because Rim defeated the powerful monster with a single punch. Furthermore, the big worm wanted to join him, and he became even stronger. Meanwhile, Ash became angry and she injured herself in an accident. Next, Grandpa Roo planned to wipe out Ninomiya, and he was excited. Then we see Ninomiya and Grandpa Roo gave him the instructions to turn a desert into a farm. Roo thought that Ninomiya would never be able to do this job, but he called his new friend to help him. Also, he asked Ranga to cast his magic on a potato. Then we see Roo, who was surprised by the efficiency, and he fell down from his flying monster. After Roo failed, Zack planned to defeat Ninomiya. He tried to find out information about Ninomiya, but no information existed. Suddenly he got an idea, and he thought that Ranga knows Ninomiya's weak point. In the evening, Ranga was enjoying a bath, and Zack thought that Ranga is a girl. His attempt to seduce him to get information about Ninomiya failed. However, he decided to blackmail Ranga and wanted to take a photo of him. He learned that Ranga is a boy and wondered if he was into guys. Suddenly Zack was thrown into the sky by Rim, who was already looking forward to dinner. Following this, the demons were greeted by Ninomiya, and he said that their position will soon be his. The three demons were angry, and they had no intention of giving up on wiping out Ninomiya. A few moments later we see Ranga, who woke up in a strange place. Ninomiya became the rabbit from Alice in Wonderland. Afterwards, Ranga was led to the queen, but on the way he found cute rabbits. They were forced by their queen to work day and night without being allowed to rest. Suddenly they became angry and turned into huge monsters. Ranga was chased by the rabbits and Ninomiya led him to a huge hole. Ranga jumped into the hole and landed in an internet cafe. Ninomiya told him to enjoy his time and get some rest. Following this, Ranga watched her favorite YouTuber named Recap Senpai and fell asleep. After she woke up, she found out that the only option was to settle in the internet cafe or work for the queen. Suddenly, the queen appeared and Ranga looked out the window. Belza was the evil queen of this dream and Ninomiya welcomed her. Then we learn that Ranga is a descendant of Queen Belza. Ranga didn't want to be a descendant of Belza who caused the world to collapse. Suddenly, Belza asked if she remembered how his family was hunted by the humans because they were descendants of Belza. Belza was sure that life was hard for Ranga and asked if he wanted to live in this world forever. Ranga knew it was just a nightmare and she wanted to wake up. But Belza wouldn't allow it and Ranga asked Ninomiya for help. Suddenly the real Ninomiya appeared in the dream and he beat up the fake Ninomiya. Following this, he woke up Ranga by head-butting him. A few moments later he discovered the defeated robot. Ranga remembered that they were fighting a robot and he was hit by a laser beam. Then Ranga asked Ninomiya for advice because he was always running away from his past. Ninomiya replied that there is no harm in running away and he can consider it a tactical retreat. After this, he said that it is important to never forget to face the problems one day and he was able to cheer Ranga up with these words. He opened the door and the Demon Lord asked him for the favor of saving the world. After he met the Demon Lord, he was shocked that she looked exactly like Rim. Then the Demon Lord walked towards Ninomiya and she tripped. At that moment her head fell off and Ninomiya was shocked by it. Ninomiya wanted to pretend not to have seen this accident. Suddenly the Demon Lord attached her head to her body and Ninomiya was confused. She explained that she was Rim's sister, but Rim didn't remember her. After that, she transformed into the demon that Ninomiya defeated. Rim immediately attacked her, and Ninomiya was surprised about all of this. Following this, she explained that they are guardians of the dungeons. Ninomiya learned that this planet was ruled by an advanced civilization. Additionally, he learned that the magic of this civilization had teleported Ninomiya to this world. Then they learned that the Guardians were tasked with managing the circulation of magical power in this world. But since Rim left the Detmold dungeon, the circulation of magic power within the dungeon was cut off. As a result, a replacement was birthed, and this was the current Demon Lord. Ninomiya then asked if she can send him back to Japan. Before she answered, she wanted to show Ninomiya something important. Ninomiya learned that Raizaha still existed in this future. The Demon Lord told him that Raizaha got contact with the ruins and studied the Colonian technology. In addition, they did something that pushed the world to the brink of collapse. Because of this, the Guardians had no choice, and they went to the surface and attacked Raizaha. Following this, the Demon Lord told them that the final war will soon begin. Ninomiya learned that if Raizaha win, this world will become a complete dystopia that requires no life. The Demon Lord has always been able to stop Raizaha, but they always came back stronger. She knew she couldn't win this time and asked Ninomiya to save the world. Then she explained to Ninomiya that he is the only person capable of defeating Raizaha in the past. Suddenly 2 doors appeared, one that led to Japan and one that led back to the past. Ninomiya said that since he arrived in this world, he had to work hard every day. After that, he made up his mind and he wasn't about to let his friends down. Then we see Wannabe and Shia, and they were being forced to take on an impossible quota. Wannabe was worried about Shia because she had been fighting non-stop for several days. Suddenly a monster appeared, who planned to attack Shia. She was exhausted, but Ninomiya protected her. They were glad that Ninomiya was alive, and he was back to save the world. Later, Ninomiya's return was celebrated by many of his co-workers. Afterwards, a guy showed up, and Ninomiya learned that Belza wanted to see him. Belza scolded him, and he has been penalized for his extended period away from work without permission. Suddenly Rachel appeared, and she was waiting for her money too. Ninomiya just laughed, and he said that he will repay the debt in no time. Before he left the office, Belza told him that his company dormitory was reassigned. As a result, he decided to live in Shia's apartment. She was shocked by this, but she let him live with her until he found a new apartment. Afterwards, Ranga gave her a modest gift for letting them live in her apartment. Shia realized that she doesn't know Ranga and wondered who this girl was. Following this, they learned that Ninomiya was sent to the future. Wannabe believed Ninomiya, but Shia thought he was talking nonsense. Suddenly Shia got a call and she wanted to go to a kickoff party. Ninomiya planned to accompany her because he planned to score some free food. Wannabe and Shia tried to stop him, but he remained stubborn. A few hours later, we see Ninomiya arguing with Rim over a piece of meat. Shia was annoyed by his behavior in the restaurant and threw a wine bottle at him. Afterwards, they celebrated, and the co-workers had a lot of fun. Wannabe was talking to his previous team leader, who was very drunk. Then we see Ranga, and a lot of guys tried to rizzing him up. She was very popular, and no one minded that Ranga wasn't an employee of the company. Meanwhile, Shin was surprised to see Ninomiya, and said that he hadn't changed. Then Shin realized that Ninomiya had forgotten his name. Despite everything, he was glad that Ninomiya returned and didn't die in the dungeon. After that, Shia showed up and asked if he was sure to let Rim and Ranga order so much. Ninomiya replied that it wasn't a problem and he ordered more booze. The following morning, Ninomiya got a headache and he was lectured by Shia. Shia told him to look at Ranga because he was introduced to a good job. Ranga wanted to pay Shia for the living expenses, and Shia was very proud of him. Rim became curious, and Ranga asked if Rim would like to accompany her. Later, Ranga bought Rim a cute coat, and Rim was very grateful for it. The two had a lot of fun, and they became good friends. In the evening, Ranga returned home from her job interview, and Ranga became an idol. Ranga gave Shia her first salary, and she was very happy. Meanwhile, Rim also returned home, and Ninomiya thought that she had eaten random garbage. Wannabe explained to him that Rim ate all the stocked-up food at the dormitory. Also, Wannabe said that their company will subtract it from Ninomiya's pay. Ninomiya wasn't angry because he had a plan to get rich. He planned to use the knowledge he received from the future to establish the ultimate dystopia. Suddenly, Wannabe told him that there is a problem in the dungeon. Ninomiya was surprised that the secret passage was blocked, but he didn't plan to give up. However, their goal was to gain the power of the ruins before Belza does. Furthermore, Ninomiya planned to use this power to repay his loans. After that, Shia told him to look at their statistical evaluation sheets. Shia said that the average adventurer achieves level 20. She was worried about him and said that he needs to get stronger. A few days later, Ninomiya and Wannabe had to undergo the famous Muten Roshi training. Shia forced the two of them to do absurd exercises to get them in shape. A few hours later, they were taken to the next station. Shia planned to force them to undergo a training system for acquiring magical power. Ninomiya tried to explain to Shia that he doesn't have any magical power in his body, but she didn't listen to Ninomiya at all, and he asked for a break. Following this, Ranga brought Ninomiya an energy drink, and Shia didn't know how to make Ninomiya stronger. She realized that Ninomiya's only talent is manipulating others. Afterwards, Ninomiya was called useless, and he wanted to know what Shia meant by the level thing. Shia replied that he should stop talking nonsense and ordered him to continue with his training. Then Shia realized that Ninomiya doesn't know what she means by magical power. He learned that magic is what humans use to create magical effects. Ninomiya couldn't keep up with her explanation and was even more confused. Afterwards, Shia demonstrated how to circulate magic in the body, and Ninomiya was shocked that she got the Hadouken skill. Ninomiya also realized that he is the weakest person in this world. In the evening, he found himself drunk because he had to accept that he was a weakling. He remembered Shia's words, that she gave him the advice to just build muscle. He suffered an emotional damage because he felt like a complete outsider in this world. He missed his old life in Japan because he was a top G there. After this, he complained about this life, and he no longer wanted to work like a slave. Suddenly, he had calmed down, and Ninomiya felt great after letting out all his worries. Later, Ninomiya thought about how he can manage to survive in the dungeon. Meanwhile, Rim and Ranga were playing together, and they disturbed Ninomiya while he was thinking. Ninomiya couldn't concentrate, and he became angry at the troublemakers. In addition, he ordered the two not to use his laser gun as a toy. Ranga said it wouldn't work anyway, and Rim nibbled on his weapon. At that moment his weapon was charged and the weapon started to reboot. Ninomiya was scanned by this gun, and he needed a password to unlock the powerful weapon. Then he thought of a password, and his mentioned password worked. As a result, Ninomiya received an overpowered weapon and he was registered as the master of this gun. The following day they went into the dungeon and Ninomiya told his friends that their priority is to catch up with Belza's pet adventurers. Ninomiya suspected that Belza's team was currently at the gatekeeper to the 5th floor. Meanwhile, Shia was worried and said that they have to be careful because strong monsters could attack them at any time. Rim was bored and she fell asleep while Shia was talking. Suddenly, Wannabe spotted monsters appearing behind Ninomiya. Shia ordered everyone into position and she planned to take care of the monsters. Ninomiya asked her to hold back and he said that she can leave it to him. Then he tested his new weapon and he immediately wiped out the attacking monsters. Ninomiya's runic gun was an overpowered weapon that even had auto-targeting. Meanwhile, Shin was amazed by Ninomiya because the monsters on the 3rd floor aren't easy to defeat. Ninomiya complimented his intelligent gun and planned to wipe out all monsters in this floor. Suddenly, his runic gun had no more energy, and Wannabe got a bad feeling. Then Ninomiya's gun activated the emergency mode and it absorbed required mana of the surroundings. Ninomiya was shocked and he tried to get rid of his weapon. Unfortunately, his gun behaved like a crazy stalker girl and stuck itself to Ninomiya. Also, his weapon absorbed the clothes of Ninomiya and his friends. As a result, Shia was angry with him and he was slapped by her. Then he learned that he couldn't get rid of it, and Ninomiya threatened to sell the runic gun. At that moment his weapon decided to activate the self-destruction ability. Ninomiya had no choice and decided to keep the weapon. Ninomiya tried to calm down his weapon and he was watched by a mysterious group.